Hello and welcome to the farm. Today we are checking out the Steiner M7Xi 2.9 to 20 by 50 and the Drake ASR. So the main focus of the video today is this Steiner, but don't worry, I will have some mentions for this rifle as well. First, the scope. A couple of years ago, the German military asked Steiner to create an optic that was more compact than their M5 series and still give you better glass and that same rugged and long-range performance. So this is what Steiner came up with. 2.9 power on the low end is really good for your close-in sort of quick shots, and 20 power up top. That's enough in the right hands for shots around 2,000 yards, sometimes more, depending on caliber. And that's all in a shorter, lighter, more compact scope compared to that M5. As you can see, this is in their Coyote Brown, which isn't a perfect match to the dark earth that this Drake is. If you're looking for rifles that will best match this, the Accuracy International Dark Earth and the Coyote Brown from Tikka on their TAC A1, those were the best matching colors, but we did put this up on some other guns, and even though it doesn't match, the two-tone nature on it still looks very good. It's a fairly well-proportioned scope. It's 13.8 inches long, 32.5 ounces, and it has a 34 millimeter tube. It does come with some flip caps. I left the front one on. I did take off the back. The one I'm shooting today has a Tremor 3 reticle, but you can also get it with the Fin Accuracy MSR. Both will be illuminated, and you can control that on the left side of the optic where it normally is, with an offsetting in between, so you can make sure that you can keep it right by the setting that you want to go to right away. The Parallax is very smooth. It goes from 50 meters to infinity. What's also nice and smooth is the zoom knob here. A lot of other scopes, you feel like you're turning a railroad switch trying to move these things, but this is nice and smooth. Can use it with one finger, and it's not so light where you hit it by accident, but it's a very nice, smooth, and a good feeling power knob. The turrets, very good clicks on this one. The clicks are very metallic. I'd say for quality of the turret feel, this is definitely in my top 5 of all scopes that I've ever messed with as far as the feel of the turrets. This is definitely a top 5. And for all the really nice optics that we carry, I don't say that lightly. One detail I do expect of a $4,000 scope is when you turn the turrets, the lines on this part of the turret, they line up perfectly with the reference line on the underside here. So a lot of scopes, even really expensive ones, the lines don't line up. You click it and it does one of these deals. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, I mean, that should be expected of scopes much cheaper than this, but it is nice to see. Turrets are fairly wide, and because of that, you can get a very generous 15 mils per turn. You do have a second Rev Indicator for when you are at that part of the optic. This little piece up here will stick out, and it is numbered on the second Rev as well, so you know exactly where you're at. 15 mils per turn is quite a bit, and usually when scope companies try to cram a whole bunch of travel into one turn, they often make the clicks too close together. So if you're just trying to click one, sometimes you'll end up clicking 2 or 3 clicks and you kind of overshoot or undershoot what you're going for. This one is bang on every time. Even though the clicks are very close together, you don't overshoot nor do you undershoot. As far as the overall travel goes, you have 27 total mils on the elevation. What that can mean as far as your scope mounts go, to play it safe, I would say do not exceed about 45 MOA of slope on your rail and or mount. Could push it and do a 50 MOA, but I can't guarantee that you'll be able to get 100 yard zero. 45, you should be just good for 100 yard zero. And as for windage, you get 6 mils per turn once you're zeroed. So it does end. You are limited in your turret travel once you're zeroed, but if you need to, you can re-index the turret in the zeroing process. But what that means is that you don't dial your turret, your windage turret, by 1 revolution and forget where you're at. So this gives you 6 mils of either direction once you're zeroed, and that's a good engineering decision by Steiner on that one. One last thing about these turrets. They are nice and wide, they have a nice feel to them as far as the texture on it here, but it's not so super tall. So those who want to piggyback a little red dot right here, it's not too tall so you can't see through the red dot. So that should line up perfectly depending on what sort of mount you have. Setting your zero is pretty standard stuff. You get it to hit where you want it to, then you loosen the 2 hex keys, and then turn the turret back to 0. Some call this re-indexing, floating, what have you. And then tighten those 2 hex keys when you're good. That also sets their 0 stop function on this. And there's a point of mention on that one. And this is true of any scope that has its 0 stop mechanism directly linked to how you index a turret. Let's say you are at the 0 range and you make a shot and you're 4 mils high, let's say, and you try to turn your turret down. This gives you basically just 1, maybe 2 clicks under your 0. So what happens? You're trying to get your shot to come down, but you're hitting the 0 stop. On this scope and ones like it, what you'll do is you'll max it out as best you can, measure your group. How far is that from your bullseye? In this example, again, 4 mils. So what we'll do is you loosen these little hex keys up here, and then with those loosened, you rotate the turret in the up direction by the amount that you need it to come down. 4 mils in this case. Now this scope would not click when you're doing this, I'm just kind of simulating it here. So when you've dialed up by the amount that you need to come down, then you tighten those 2 hex keys, then you can actually dial it down, it'll click, and it'll bring that shot right down to where you need it to. As far as the overall feel, I mean, it's a Steiner. They've been making rugged optics for quite a while now. Not just rifle scopes, their binos and such go way back. So it's no surprise that this thing feels absolutely precise, solid, and really well made. I've attached it to this Drake with the Steiner T series rings. I chose the ones that are 1.35, and as you can see here, we got a perfect gap, I'd say, of the flip cap over this rail. Right, so the rifle. What this is a Drake ASR. And this is one of the actual rifles that was submitted to the military for the multi-caliber sniper rifle program, the ASR program. So this actual rifle was sent to Crane for testing. We have 1 more like it back at the store. We got 3 total, 1 has already sold. We have a spotlight video out right now, so definitely check that out. Oh, we're at 650 yards. That group might be that big. Oh, I like you. Oh, I like you so much. It's so much nicer when everything you have just works. Alrighty. I mean, that was what, that was 2 mags full, 1 round miss, that got it on target, top left shoulder on shot number 2. The rest of them, all about here, right where they should be. Let's see, I'm at 5.2 mils. Let's dial this back to 0. I've backed it down to 0. I'm gonna try out this Tremor Reticle. It's been a while since I've messed with one. And the reason for that is, they're a bit busy. But I think it's a little intimidating at first, but once you get to use it, it all starts to make sense. So I was at 5.2, there's 5. Now the first hash mark below the 5 mil marker, because they're spaced 0.2 apart. So we'll go for the first hash. Ah, a little high. That's the beauty of that T3, just measure it down. Even at 2.9, that's a 650-yard shot. Granted, that's redder than Santa Claus, that target is, but 2.9 power at that distance. I mean, this is just point it where you want it to go. Rifle's pretty good as well. This Steiner though, man, I'm in love. I mean, you'd be forgiven if you didn't really think of Steiner for your super high-end rifle optic, but you know what? That's changing for me. This thing is just spectacular. I mean, 2.9, 20 right there. Back to 2.9, smooth, good glass, good reticle, good turrets. This thing's a masterpiece. Why didn't I think of this thing earlier? Well, it's a hot and muggy day out here in the farm, but I had a great time messing with both of these. Steiner was the star of the show. This thing was absolutely incredible. Drake rifle shot incredibly well as well. Really happy to see what this thing can do out in person. And we have both for sale up on our site right now, so please check it out. We have a spotlight video on the Drake coming out, so definitely check that out as well. Also see us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see you next time.